Have you ever walked into an interview knowing you could crush the job, only to watch the offer slide to someone waving a shinier piece of paper? Maybe you've sat in a meeting where a thought leader, with more letters than wisdom, pushed an idea that made zero sense. Yet nobody spoke up because, well, the title said they were right. From schoolyard report cards to adult job titles, we've been programmed to treat credentials like truth stamps. Score high, follow directions, collect the gold stars, and the system gives you a pat on the head. But let's get real. A certificate proves you memorize the answers, not that you can solve new problems. Obedience earns medals. Curiosity earns red marks. We confuse recognition with reality every day. You can invest a decade mastering a skill and still be ranked below someone with a weekend badge course. Remember being called disrespectful for questioning a rule, or dumb for missing a test question? It was never about learning to think. It was about learning to comply. Here's the secret the gatekeepers hope you never learn. Your value isn't set by how snugly you fit inside their frame. Degrees and awards are receipts for playing along, not receipts for intelligence. When you stop chasing those gold stars, you start building something they can't rubber stamp. Real, undeniable value. Most folks don't fear ignorance. They fear looking unqualified, so they keep stacking titles. Not out of passion, but out of dread. Dread of being invisible in a world that worships credentials. Ask yourself, what if the big titles at the top didn't climb some merit mountain? What if they were born halfway up and handed a map the rest of us never saw? The resume game rewards conformity, not creativity. And the tragedy, we inherit that fear. We hush our ideas beside experts, wondering if we matter without the paper. Spoiler, that paper doesn't make you powerful. It makes you predictable. Real freedom starts when you quit needing a stamp to trust your own mind. The system will label you a dropout or a risk. But the real risk is handing your life to rules you never believed in. Let's pull back the curtain a little further. This isn't just about paperwork. It's about a system so deeply built on obedience that questioning it feels like rebellion. You weren't just told to get a degree. You were told your entire future depended on it. Play it safe, they said. Get the paper, then you'll be free. But how many people with that paper still feel caged? Still sit in jobs they hate, shrinking themselves to fit the mold, watching their curiosity wither like a plant locked in a box? This is the part no one wants to say out loud. It's not about education anymore. It's about submission. A 2018 Pew study found that over 60% of Americans don't even think college is worth the cost. And yet they still send their kids into the same system, still co-sign those massive loans, still whisper, just in case. That's not confidence. That's fear dressed up as tradition, like a religion you no longer believe in, but you're too scared to leave. You dress up, recite the lines, and hope HR will grant you salvation. But what happens when you realize the altar you're kneeling at, those job interviews, those credentials, doesn't actually offer freedom? It just reshuffles the chains. It rewards performance, not passion. Conformity, not creativity. And the worst part? It convinces you it's your fault if you don't make it. As if success were just a matter of trying harder. As if we all started from the same place, with the same map. Let's talk about Harvard. Every year they accept only 4 to 5% of applicants. Sounds like meritocracy, right? But nearly half of those admitted come from the wealthiest 1%. So it's not about intelligence, it's about access. If you grow up in the right neighborhood, attend the right prep school, have SAT tutors and personal essay coaches, then the system isn't a challenge, it's a red carpet. Meritocracy? Number. It's grooming, dressed up to look like fairness. And if you're not born into that world, you're told you're behind. You're not. You were just never invited. But instead of questioning the game, we blame ourselves. We chase degrees we can't afford, trying to catch up in a race that was rigged from the start. The SAT doesn't test intelligence. It confirms advantage. And the cruelest twist? When you fall short, they call you lazy. They don't see the 10-year head start they gave someone else. That's the trick of this system. It hides inequality behind shiny credentials. It turns conformity into a virtue and calls it success. And the ones who win? Many are just better at mimicking what the system wants. Not more brilliant, just more conditioned. So, Yes, they might sit in the corner office, but many of them are trapped too, trapped in a loop of anxiety, perfectionism, and empty ambition. Built to win, never taught to feel. And now we reach the core of it. The damage isn't just institutional, it's deeply personal. You start to shape your identity around what gets rewarded. You choose degrees based on job markets. You pick majors not because they light you up inside, but because someone told you they're safe. You read to pass, not to understand. You work to climb, not to create. Slowly, without even noticing, you drift from your own soul. Every title feels like progress, but many of those titles, they're just shiny chains. Applauded, admired, but still chains. You don't even realize it's a trap because the cage looks like success. It sounds like applause. And right when you begin to feel the doubt creep in, that voice inside whispers, "But if I don't have the degree, how will anyone respect me?" That voice isn't you. It was planted. From a young age, this culture trained you to believe that without a certificate, you don't belong. But here's the truth most won't admit. You were always enough. You were just too busy proving it to feel it. Take Leonardo da Vinci. No diploma, no degree, no job title. And yet, he mapped the human body more accurately than the scientists of his era. He understood engineering, art, anatomy, and nature with no stamp of approval. He didn't study to impress. He studied because he was hungry to know. That's the being mode. And that's the part the system fears the most. Not the dropout, not the rebel, but the awakened. The one who realizes they don't need to ask permission to grow. Even if you walk away from the system, the real war begins inside. Alan Watts called it the ego trap, that constant feeling of needing to prove you're good enough. So you keep climbing, one degree, then another, one title, then a bigger one. But underneath, the fear still sits untouched, the fear of being overlooked, of disappointing your parents, of not being seen. But when your self-worth is built on validation, someone else always holds the key. Watts said, freedom isn't being praised, it's no longer needing to be. Real power comes when you stop performing, when you walk into a room and nothing inside you is begging to be accepted, when you stop reading to sound smart and start reading because you're genuinely curious, when you stop networking to be seen and start connecting because you care. That's when the shift happens, from climbing to creating, from proving to becoming. This is the truth. You don't need a degree to matter. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need a certificate to create a life that's deeply real and undeniably powerful. What you need is presence, clarity, and courage. The courage to stop asking, "What will they think of me?" and start asking, "What do I truly believe?" Because once you stop chasing approval, you finally create space for something more important. Your own voice, your own path, your own reason to get up every morning. The kind of path that doesn't need to be stamped, ranked, or validated, because it's real. And if you've ever felt small because you didn't have a title, if you've ever doubted yourself in a room full of degrees, remember this: you're not falling behind. You're stepping outside the illusion. They'll ask you to justify it. They'll measure you by their old rules, but don't play that game. Write your own. And no, it won't always be easy, but it will always be real. Because when you stop performing for applause, you finally start living for meaning. That's where freedom begins. Not in the spotlight, but in the quiet, grounded clarity that doesn't need to be certified. It just is. So, drop the script, walk off their stage, and start building something so powerful, so rooted in truth, that it doesn't need to be approved, because you know, deeply, it's already enough.